Our tale starts by showing us this mysterious orb that captures and reflects everything around it. While it's snowing, a newcomer arrives at the scene and dies on top of it. The orb, now half-wolf, gains consciousness for the first time. It starts walking and eventually reaches a village where a boy welcomes it, naming it Joan. He feeds it, and they go to sleep. The next day, while the boy is walking with the orb, he explains how the other villagers left 5 years ago in search of new lands. He couldn't go with them because Joan clung to his leg and wouldn't let go. Left behind with his grandmother and a few others, he ended up alone as everyone else eventually died. Suddenly, alarms start ringing, and the boy rushes home, hoping it's the villagers returning. But when he opens the door, no one is there. One of the traps keeps ringing, and he finds a fish, which he gives to Joan. But Joan only sniffs it, and the boy realizes the wolf has forgotten how to eat. So, he teaches it, and the orb starts to mimic him. Later, we see the boy drawing pictures of his family to show that there was life in the village. He tells Joan that one day they'll escape and explore the world together. With everything ready, they start their journey towards the paradise on the other side of the mountain. As days pass, they encounter many signs, but one day, the boy falls into an icy river and gets injured. The next day, they face a fierce storm, leaving the boy exhausted. Despite their struggles, the boy convinces himself that even if he doesn't know if the others are alive, there's no reason to turn back because staying in the village would mean certain death. At that moment, they find a scratched-out sign and, looking around, they see a destroyed shelter and many graves. This makes the boy happy, as it means humans had passed through there. As the boy tells Joan all this, he begins to cry, asking his friend if he really thinks they can make it. He accepts that he is alone and that no one will speak to him, apologizes to the wolf, and says he wants to go back home. They begin their journey back, and when they finally reach the house, the boy is too weak to do anything but cry and lie in bed. Day by day, the boy's condition worsens. Tired of lying down, he eventually gets up, sits in a chair, and tells Joan that he doesn't want the others to see him lying down when they return. He asks Joan never to forget him. After saying this, the boy leans back in his chair and, sadly, passes away. The orb, not understanding what happened, approaches and tries to lift him. While doing this, it begins to transform into a human. When the door opens, our protagonist walks out, heading to his paradise, where he reunites with those from his village. We learn through a voiceover that for this to happen, a stimulus was needed, in this case, the boy's longing. Moving on with the story, the orb finally leaves the icy place but, not knowing how to be human, doesn't meet its needs and soon dies. However, for the orb, this isn't a problem as it always regenerates. The first time took almost 5 days, but by the 6th time, it took only 12 hours. It gets up and walks without rest until it finally reaches a forest. Suddenly, a bear appears. Switching scenes, we meet a girl named March playing with dolls. Another girl named Parona approaches and gives her another doll. Later, March's parents call her to eat. At home, March asks her mother how long it will take for her to become an adult. Her mother tells her that she has to go 3,000 nights without wetting the bed. March says she can't wait that long. The next day, we see Parona training with a bow, struggling a bit, while her companions encourage her. Meanwhile, March is playing with her dolls when Parona appears and offers to show her a place outside the village. Just as they're about to leave, they are stopped and told that a meeting has been called. Everyone gathers, and March is told that she has been chosen for the Oniguma gratitude ritual, the god who brings peace to the region of Ninana. In this ritual, they must choose a pure girl to be offered to Oniguma. When March is chosen, everyone congratulates her, but she doesn't understand why. When she gets home, her parents hug her, crying and apologizing. Confused, Hayes explains that March will be sacrificed and that she will be in charge of looking after her until the time comes. Hayes explains the schedule. There will be a banquet in the village, and then March will be taken to the top of the mountain, where she will sleep until Oniguma appears. A year later, they will retrieve her remains to give to her family. Upon hearing this, March starts screaming and crying, but her father tells her to calm down, as if it were that easy. Later, we see everyone giving offerings to March, and the next day, she begins her journey. As they travel, an arrow suddenly hits the caravan. Taking advantage of the distraction, March starts running. While fleeing, she trips and falls into a river. When she gets up, she encounters the orb in its current form. The soldiers, seeing this, run away in fear. The orb turns and begins to walk away, and March decides to follow it. Meanwhile, Hayes seeks out Parona, telling her she will be punished for trying to help March. However, the soldiers return, claiming they saw a monster. Back with March, as she follows the orb, it suddenly stops. She notices a fruit, picks it, and gives it to the orb, which eats it like it did when it was a wolf. After eating, the orb falls asleep, and March takes the opportunity to eat and then also falls asleep. In her dreams, she returns to her village and sees her little sister and other girls being devoured because if she escapes, other girls will be chosen as offerings. The next day, as March walks, the orb begins to follow her. She tries to teach it how to eat properly, but it seems hopeless. Since the orb doesn't speak, March names it Fushur and tells it that when someone helps, it should say thank you. Meanwhile, Parona tries to escape but is confronted by the bear, which devours one of the soldiers. Just as the bear is about to eat her, Parona manages to escape, falling off a cliff and landing in the same river where March had fallen. Eventually, Hayes finds March. So, the boy gives Fushur a fruit and jokingly says that mom has to go. Meanwhile, Parona runs through the forest and, upon finding Fushur, asks if he has seen a girl with long hair. Since Fushur doesn't speak, he simply continues on his way. In another scene, Hayes gives March something to eat, but before she can, soldiers appear in the distance, reporting that a spiny bear attacked them and one of their comrades died. Because of this, they decide to take another route to the altar. After eating, March falls asleep. When they reach the altar, the soldiers remove some bones and place March in their stead. Suddenly, the bear appears, and Hayes recognizes it as Oniguma. She seizes the moment to try and free March, but the bear knocks her away. As the soldiers retreat, Fushur confronts the bear, surprising everyone who watches from the nearby wall. Fushur, with his strength, manages to pry open the bear's mouth but gets decapitated in the process. However, he transforms back into a wolf and resumes the fight. During this struggle, Fushur starts receiving new stimuli, similar to when he first transformed into a boy. Hayes, witnessing this, wonders if he is a work of the gods. Eventually, March wakes up and sees the bear lying dead on the ground. Hayes approaches and tells them the ritual is complete, giving them two options: die there or leave with her. Hayes decides to take everyone back to the village, including the wolf. Later, Fushur approaches March, who gives him a fruit. After eating it, Fushur looks up and says, "Thank you," in a very kind manner. Meanwhile, Parona remembers how her sister once hid her in the forest. When she returned to the village, she discovered that her sister had been chosen as a sacrifice. The villagers believed Parona hid on purpose, so they threw her out. In the present, as they travel, an elder shaman from Yannom, the same one who chose March as a sacrifice, appears and sits nearby. Angry, March asks why she was chosen. The elder responds that it was because she was the prettiest. The elder then implies that she is a criminal, stating that Yannom wants the lands of Ninana to help with the ritual and protect humanity from Oniguma. This would also give them control over the villagers, allowing them to invade those lands. Parona retorts that they must end this horrible tradition, to which the elder replies that she is dreaming, as there will be no way to convince the villagers that their god, Oniguma, is dead. The carriage stops by a lake so the girls can bathe. Fushur approaches the water's edge and, upon seeing his reflection, remembers the boy he once was. Repeatedly, he transforms back into a human as night falls. After giving them clothes, Hayes tells Parona and March that from now on, they are part of the nation of Yannom. Upon arriving, they start trying all kinds of new foods. However, when March sees parents lifting their baby, she feels downcast. Later, she encounters a postman and asks to send a message to her parents. Hayes informs her that there is no written language in Ninana, so no one would be able to read the letter. Despite this, March writes the letter and asks the postman to deliver it to her parents. When the postman asks for the exact address, neither of them knows what to say, so they go off to dinner instead. While they are dining, Hayes discusses where they might live for the rest of their lives. Suddenly, all three fall asleep. Later, they are introduced to some elders. Hayes explains that Oniguma was mentioned because their protagonist, Fushur, is immortal. To demonstrate, they send a criminal to kill Fushur, promising him freedom if he succeeds. As the criminal attacks, Fushur begins to receive new stimuli and heals himself. He also copies the weapon and uses it to wound the attacker, mimicking his screams of pain. When soldiers arrive, Fushir transforms into a wolf and knocks them down. He is captured and placed next to March. While March talks to Fushir, Parona appears at the window, asking March what's in the room. March mentions a vase and the arrow Fushir had. Parona asks for the arrow and some wolf fur. Suddenly, the soldiers transporting the bear arrive. March asks when they will release the bear, and when told it will never be released, Fushir starts digging, eventually reaching the room where the bear is held. Both approach the bear and notice that the spines are actually numerous arrows. Hayes and other soldiers discuss who will take care of the bear. When they see March, they decide she will take responsibility. Parona, meanwhile, reveals a plan to escape with the elder, disguised as a soldier and carrying the bear's pelt as proof of its death to end the ritual. Days pass as March takes care of the bear, which eventually dies. Parona then says it's time to execute her plan. After sneaking past the guards, they reach the room where the bear is kept. Parona asks March to go ahead with the elder so she can skin the bear. Just as she's about to start, March stops her. Parona tries to convince her by offering a doll, but March rejects it and convinces her not to do it. They steal a carriage and escape back to Ninana. While on the way, Parona asks March what she wants to do when she grows up. March replies that she wants to learn to read, write, and do many other things, and most importantly, she wants to do it all with Fushir. Suddenly, they are attacked by Hayes and the soldiers. A soldier jumps onto the carriage, but Parona manages to throw him off. Hayes shoots an arrow, and March steps in the way. Seeing this, Fushir leaps off the carriage, transforms into a bear, and fights off the attackers. In a flashback, we see Parona watching March play at being a mother year after year until one day, Parona asks why she is always alone. March replies that she has no family, so Parona gives her a doll and tells her they can be a family, with March as the mom and Parona as the dad. Back in the present, as Parona tries to save March, March asks if she is going to die. Parona reassures her that she will come back and grow up to be an adult. Tragically, March dies, telling Parona to be a good mother in her stead. Parona takes March's food and places it with her doll in March's arms. Meanwhile, Fushir, in bear form, fights off the soldiers. Parona thanks Fushir and tells him he no longer needs to fight for them. She then confronts Hayes, who is severely injured. Fushir continues his journey, transforming mostly into a wolf but sometimes into March to climb more easily. One day, he meets an old woman, Pioran, who mistakes him for March and asks why he isn't with Parona. Fushir silently boards her carriage, transforms into the boy, and sits, staring at the spot where March died. He then gets up and continues his journey, with Pioran deciding to follow him. After days without food or water, Pioran starts to go mad and tries to attack Fushir. Instead of harming her, Fushir transforms into March, climbs a tree, and throws down some fruit. Once they've eaten, they continue their journey and find a map, which Pioran begins to copy. Interested, Fushir takes the paper and starts scribbling on it. Pioran offers to teach him to read and write in exchange for his protection. As Pioran teaches him, Fushir learns quickly, absorbing new stimuli. After several days, they reach a coastal city. Curious about a ship, Fushir starts to explore it. Pioran comments on how much he talks now, likely influenced by March. She asks about his life before meeting March, and Fushir explains that he was alone for a long time until he met a boy who gave him food. Later, Pioran spots land and explains that the red sky is due to Yanum's daily battles with Takna, their destination. That night, while camping, Pioran tells Fushir about her late fiancé, an intellectual. As they sleep, a tree root kills Fushir. As we know, he cannot die, so he transforms back into a wolf. Pioran wakes up and sees the unusual event. Time stops, and an entity appears, seemingly familiar with Fushir. It asks how it feels to lose a part of oneself, revealing that it was the one who stole it. To regain what he lost, Fushir must confront and defeat it. Time resumes, and Fushir attacks immediately. Meanwhile, the voice tells Fushir that there's a core inside the entity, which he must remove to stop it. Suddenly, Fushir is trapped by the roots, and the entity steals his wolf form. Transforming into a bear, Fushir continues the fight. He manages to see the core but can't stop it. Defeated, he He decides to adopt March's form, jumping through the trees and performing some maneuvers to reach the core and rip it out. This causes the entity to fall to the ground, and as Fushur grabs it, all his memories flood back. He asks the strange being who it really is, and it replies that it is his creator with the goal of preserving this world. The entity he defeated was sent to prevent this. The next day, our protagonist and the elder arrive at her fiancé's house. Inside, they meet a boy, and we are introduced to the brothers Gugu and Shin. Shin sells vegetables in the city. One day, while working, Gugu meets a shy girl. Later, he finds his sister talking to some men and asks who they are. She explains they are her new friends. Gugu checks his savings and asks Shin if he used any money, to which he replies no. Gugu decides to hide the savings elsewhere. The next day, while selling fruits, Gugu sees the dog again and notices it has a collar with its name, Mir. It belongs to the girl he met earlier. Grateful for returning the dog, she gives him an expensive ring and tells him he won't need to sell vegetables if he sells it. When Gugu asks for her name, she has already left. Returning home, he finds his brother gone and a note saying he left to fight his destiny. Now alone, one day at dusk, a carriage accidentally dislodges a log, nearly crushing Gugu. The driver checks on him and goes for help. Gugu, trying to save a girl named Lin, falls off a cliff and gets his face crushed by the log. While others help Lin, Gugu is left to fend for himself until an old man finds him at night. Waking up in an unfamiliar place, Gugu sees his disfigured face in the mirror. The old man tells him he's lucky to be alive. Gugu starts wearing a helmet to hide his face. Back with our protagonists, they demonstrate Fushur's abilities to the old man, who is impressed. Gugu asks Fushur's name and laughs upon hearing it. They show Fushur around, mentioning they've been there for 3 months. After Fushur tries some liquor and spits it out, they head to the forest to clean up. The old man notes that Fushur might be scared due to the entity that attacked them earlier. He takes Fushur to a spring, where Gugu removes his clothes but keeps his helmet on, calling himself ugly. Fushur, not understanding, asks what ugly means. Gugu explains that to live there, Fushur must learn to work, teaching him to clean, cook, and farm. During dinner, the elders discuss what to do with Fushur. The liquor store owner mentions that if people knew of Fushur's existence, it could spark a battle. The elders joke about ways to use Fushur to make money, but Gugu gets angry and says they should be grateful to know him. He says he would accept Fushur as a younger brother. The next day, Fushur continues to adapt to his new life, learning more about humanity and the world around him. Gugu shares his vision of himself in 10 years, still in the same place. He once dreamed of living in a house and eating to his heart's content, but achieving that dream cost him his face, his brother, and the girl he likes. Later, while working in the shop, Rin appears, looking for something healthy for the body. Noticing Fushur, she asks his name, and Gugu introduces himself. Rin seems interested in Fushur and starts asking many questions. Jealous, Gugu intervenes, wanting to take Fushur away. Rin offers to take Fushur on a walk, but Gugu insists that Fushur barely speaks and doesn't know how to take off his clothes. He needs basic education. Rin offers to teach Fushur to talk and help him with his clothes, which sounds awkward, but she means well. Later, Gugu, feeling jealous, cries in the corners of the shop. The old man advises him that time spent lamenting is valuable time that could be used to improve himself. Inspired by this wisdom, Gugu starts exercising to cope with his broken heart. When Fushur tries to imitate him, Gugu kicks him, feeling frustrated. The next morning, Rin returns to the shop, wanting to work and live with them. The old man agrees, and during dinner, he asks Fushur to keep his powers a secret, as they could be dangerous if discovered. The next day, Rin disappears, ready to work. Gugu asks her about her wound, and she admits it hasn't healed. Gugu consults the old man, who nonchalantly extracts premium liquor from Gugu's body and tells him to apply it to Rin's wound. Gugu is shocked to learn the old man added an organ to his body. Feeling betrayed, Gugu runs away. Rin asks why he did it, and the old man explains that he thought Gugu was going to die. When Fushur appears, Rin asks if she can go find Gugu, but Fushur says no. The old man wonders who will cook now, and Fushur offers but makes a terrible meal. Meanwhile, Gugu, feeling abandoned, returns to his old home. He decides to save money to see a doctor to remove the liquor from his body. He goes to his old employer, explains his situation, and starts working again. The employer invites Gugu to live with his family, but one of the employer's sons rudely objects. Gugu takes off his helmet and asks if they would still want him, shocking everyone with his disfigured face. Before leaving, the employer apologizes and invites Gugu to keep working with them. As Gugu leaves, some kids steal his helmet and throw it in the river. When he goes to retrieve it, he realizes there's no point in wearing it anymore. The next day, Fushir, struggling with Gugu's chores, makes a mess of things. The old man tells Fushir to keep trying. Gugu, working in the fields, returns home to exercise. The employer's son, still rude, tells him not to return to work. Frustrated, Gugu decides to seek work in the city, but people are frightened by his appearance and reject him. Out of money, Gugu considers selling the ring Rin gave him, but the buyer's reaction discourages him. While walking through the city, he encounters his brother, who is in terrible shape. Gugu tries to help, but when his brother wakes up and recognizes him, he denies having a brother, adding to Gugu's heartbreak. Things go from bad to worse, but there's a glimmer of hope. When Gugu returns home, he's captured by some thugs planning to sell him. Suddenly, Fushir appears and rescues him from the criminals. Fushir tells Gugu that he can't grow without him, and in this heartwarming moment, they both jump for joy. The next day, we see them having fun around the city, scaring people as they go. Fushir asks Gugu if he will go back home, but Gugu says no. Suddenly, Gugu is paralyzed and can't move due to hunger. Fushir focuses and manages to create food with his hand, allowing Gugu to eat until he's full. After eating, Gugu recognizes a dog as Joan. When Gugu asks why Fushir calls the dog Joan, Fushir explains that the first person who named him that died, and he took on their form. Gugu starts to explain to Fushir that he likely transforms due to the emotional impact of loss. He tells Fushir that if he had grown up in a normal family, this might not have happened, but now he's not alone because Gugu is his family. Gugu asks Fushir to take his form when he dies. Later, Rin appears and asks Gugu why he won't return home, assuring him that the old man can remove the organ. Gugu says he can't return because he threw away his mask. Rin offers to find the mask, but Gugu doesn't know where it is. Fushir reassures him that his heart hurts less when he talks to Rin and will heal once he has his mask. Rin shows Gugu her wound, saying it's not serious. Gugu tells her she's silly to worry about it, making her cry, saying no one listens to her and they only see her as a pet. Gugu reassures her, saying she has great parents, but she says if she had never been in that family, she wouldn't have the wound. Someone who hated her father pushed her. Rin gives Gugu a new mask and, after putting it on, apologizes and they go to find Fushir. Meanwhile, Fushir finds the mask but is confronted by his creator, who warns him to be careful because the enemy is always lurking. As they walk, a thug hired by Rin's family tries to take her away, but Gugu intervenes and they run. Rin had escaped home and wore the mask to avoid recognition. Fushir arrives with Gugu's mask, and they decide to go back home. On the way, they encounter one of Rin's maids. Gugu holds her hand and they start running, with Fushir transforming into March to distract the maid. However, a plant grabs Fushir and pulls him away. Hearing his screams, Gugu rushes back and finds the entity transformed into March. When the entity is about to attack Gugu, Fushir stops it and they are both trapped. Fushir transforms into a bear to break free, but when Gugu tries to help, he gets thrown away. Fushir gets distracted, and the entity steals his boy form. Gugu, having vomited some liquor, gets an idea and sets the entity on fire with a nearby torch. Fushir tells him to escape, but Gugu runs to get more liquor. He drunkenly stumbles into Rin's family, who criticize him for letting her escape. Ignoring them, Gugu asks the old man for the strongest liquor, explaining the situation with Fushir. An old woman insists the boy is in trouble. The old man fills Gugu with strong liquor, but Gugu starts coughing, indicating internal damage. The old man warns that Gugu might die if not fixed. When Rin's father tries to take her away, Gugu stops him. Rin explains she wants to be free, not controlled by an arranged marriage. Gugu confesses his feelings and leaves. Returning to the forest, Gugu finds the entity in bear form but can't find Fushir. He uses the liquor to set the entity on fire, ultimately defeating it. When the entity's core burns, its memories return to Fushir, now in rock form. The creator of Fushir tells him that thanks to Gugu, he will become stronger. Fushur, now in the form of the wolf, thanks him. The next day, they return home, and everyone is happy to see Gugu because they can now enjoy good food again. Fushur talks to his creator, who advises him to leave because staying will prevent him from getting stronger. The knockers, the strange creatures he fought, are growing stronger and intend to destroy the world. However, Fushur disagrees, insisting he needs Gugu to become stronger. The creator tells him that if he wishes to see the end, he can stay. Gugu interrupts, asking why Fushur is talking to himself, as only Fushur can see his creator. Time passes, and 4 years later, Gugu has become a strong young man helping the old man. Rin also frequently visits, bringing sewing projects for Fushur, who has greatly improved in cooking and even sports a beard. Rin mentions that she will turn 16 soon and invites Gugu and Fushur to her birthday. The creator reveals that Fushur hasn't transformed in 4 years, meaning his body has aged naturally during this period. Fushur wanted to live like everyone else, so he chose not to transform. Rin struggles with what to give Gugu for his birthday. She tells Fushur that turning 16 means she must marry someone chosen by her parents, but she doesn't want to marry someone she doesn't love. Fushur responds that Gugu says the same thing about her. Gugu, watching from outside, is approached by his brother, who apologizes for abandoning him and shares that he's doing well but still lacks a mansion. He invites Gugu to live with him, but Gugu refuses, not wanting to be taken from his life again. Before leaving, his brother promises to always be there for him and returns the ring Gugu gave him years ago. Rin recognizes Gugu from their childhood and tries to put the ring on his finger, but it doesn't fit. She tells Gugu that if he loves her, he should propose, but he denies ever saying he loved her. Angry, Rin invites him to her birthday and leaves. The old man appears, telling Gugu he messed up but also gives him a new mask that can ignite fire without a torch. On the day of Rin's birthday, Gugu buys a flower for her. At the party, Rin thanks him for the flower, recalling it from the day she was injured. Gugu tells her the story of how he got his disfigured face while trying to save someone who only ended up with a small scar. Rin surprises him by accurately describing the scene and begins to cry. Suddenly, the place where Gugu is standing collapses, and the creator reappears, saying the enemy's roots are spreading. The ceiling starts to fall, and Fushur transforms into a bear to hold it up. Gugu grabs one of the knocker's roots and manages to save the injured parents before the house collapses. Gugu returns to find Fushur, who is fighting the knocker in bear form. Gugu uses his fire, but it has no effect on the stone-covered knocker. Fushur tells him he doesn't know how to defeat it, but Gugu suggests that its flesh must be beneath the stone layer. They climb on the knocker, using Fushur's spear to break the stone armor and attack with fire. Due to this, the core shifts locations and escapes. Fushur thanks Gugu, but suddenly, a stone hand kills him. As it's about to do the same to Fushur, Rin appears and saves him. Rin says she has many questions but insists they need to leave because the house is collapsing. Fushur, feeling pain but realizing it's not his own, quickly moves the debris to prevent it from crushing Rin. He promises to buy her another flower since the one he gave her is in bad shape, but Rin suggests they pick one together. She then confesses her love, and they kiss. Meanwhile, Fushur battles the knocker, transforming into Gugu and using fire to attack while shouting that Gugu isn't dead. However, the steam causes an explosion, and although the core manages to escape, Fushur survives. The creator appears, telling Fushur the knocker is heading west and he should follow. Instead, Fushur searches through the debris. Upon finding Gugu's brother, he cries. Gugu's brother carries Gugu's body, feeling a mix of happiness and change among the elders, who compliment him on his appearance without the mask. Gugu asks about Fushur and the enemy, but everything fades, and he realizes he has lost his life. He asks the elders to ensure no one else dies because of him and considers leaving. Rin wakes up and rushes to find Fushur. Before she reaches the house, Fushur transforms into Gugu to avoid surprising her. When Rin sees him, she hugs him tightly and asks about Fushur. Fushur, in Gugu's form, says he died and shows her the grave. The elders decide to take care of Rin as Gugu must leave. When Rin asks where he's going, Fushur, as Gugu, says he's going shopping. Rin tells him that when he returns, they should go pick flowers together and hands him the ring, but Fushur tells her to keep it to remember him. The elders provide Fushur with food and money, and he leaves the village. At sunset, Rin lies in a field of violets when her father finds her. She confesses that she's in love, but the person she loves is no longer around. Meanwhile, for days after leaving the liquor maker's house, Fushi calls the creator and demands to know who he is and what he wants. The creator explains that Fushi is a device meant to gather data to save the world, likening himself to Fushi's father. Fushi recalls being raised by someone but can't remember who. Angry, Fushi demands answers. The creator says Fushi is special and unique, making him a target for the knockers who wish to control him. He adds that while he can control Fushi's body, he can't control his mind. The knockers will keep attacking until they achieve their goal, so Fushi must be the one to stop them. The creator also mentions that he will eventually cease to exist, so Fushi must be ready to fight alone. Frustrated, Fushi says that nothing will bring Gugu back and dismisses any future concerns. Suddenly, he smells something familiar and finds Pioran, who tells him that although she went to Takna to help, she did nothing for him. She decides to accompany him again. They continue their journey together, although Fushi is reluctant because of the dangers. He asks Pioran not to die during their travels. They arrive at a town where Pioran enjoys a good meal, while Fushi, worried about the knockers, waits outside. Fushi asks the creator where the knockers are, and the creator says they are kilometers to the northwest and haven't moved for 4 days. As night falls, Fushi tells Pioran about the creator. The next day, our protagonists continue their journey and come across a fruit tree. Fushi tries to reach the fruit but can't. The old woman, Pioran, suggests that he adopt March's form as it would be easier for him to climb. When Fushi hears March's name, he realizes he has forgotten her. He tries to remember and partially succeeds. Later, to become stronger, Fushi begins to adopt more stimuli but faces a problem. When he transforms into objects, he loses consciousness, and to adopt a living form, the being must be dead first. While camping, Pioran suggests they go to Sarnina, a paradise full of animals and rarely visited by humans, where Fushi can train freely. With this plan in mind, they reach a port the next day, hoping to travel by boat. However, a girl informs them the boat is full and directs them to another boat. Unfortunately, they are captured and locked in a cage, marked as prisoners headed to Jananda, where they will spend the rest of their days. Upon arrival, a man notices Fushi lacks a mark and takes him back. Fushi escapes, transforms into a wolf to find Pioran, but falls and dies while climbing. He revives and encounters some children who are shocked by his resurrection. Fushi spots an owl in the distance and asks one of the children for a bow to kill the owl and adopt its form. A girl in the group stops him, explaining the owl belongs to her friend. Fushi asks the kids how to reach the old woman, and they tell him Jananda is a prison island with no escape. However, there is a way out, participating in a coliseum and winning. The next day, Fushi enters the coliseum. The girl explains that the victor gains control over the island. Fushi, not knowing what to do, initially struggles but ultimately prevails by default as the last fighter standing. Afterward, the children capitalize on Fushi's newfound glory, charging people who want to talk to him. When asked why they are doing this, the children explain that no leader has lasted more than 2 weeks without being killed. They hope Fushi will be different and want to be on good terms with the new boss. The girl tells Fushi they need to head to the city and prepare ships so the innocent can live freely. Fushi, however, feels uneasy and leaves, followed by the children. The children introduce themselves: Tonari, the blonde, Mia, the redhead, and Yuroi, along with the owl, lingered. Tonari shows Fushi around, explaining the city's layout with the Colosseum in the center and 3 churches, Benet, Monjo, and Sauntla, surrounding it. These churches serve as facades to maintain the illusion of order. She also shows Fushi the agricultural district and explains that murder is allowed to maintain peace. Fushi asks how they can live there. Tonari explains that they could leave, but resources for building ships are scarce, and no one wants to deplete them. She recounts how the island once belonged to a country that sent prisoners there, but the population grew out of control, leading to abandonment. The only task that remains is bringing in more prisoners. Fushi notices a mark on Tonari and learns it signifies she is related to a prisoner. Observing the prisoners, Fushi sees they live normally and asks why Pioran was separated. Tonari speculates it was due to violence, having killed 10 people in a fit of rage. After the conversation, Fushir reflects on the abnormality of their smiles in such a grim place. At night, Fushir tries to catch bats to reach Pioran but fails. He asks the creator if his powers can help him reach her. In response, the creator tells Fushir that he only appears to foster his development. When Fushir mentions the tournament, he says he doesn't want to kill anyone else. The creator points out that if he hadn't been there, Gugu wouldn't have died, implying that everyone in the Colosseum faces similar choices. Each person decides how to live their life, so Fushir shouldn't feel guilty, as everyone will die eventually. The next day, while Fushir tries to climb to where Pioran is, Tonari appears and tells him the tournament is starting soon. A leader also informs them that a woman from Yanam has disappeared. Fushir encounters a mole, accidentally kills it, and transforms into it to enter a hole. Tonari's elf finds him and takes him to the Colosseum, where he reluctantly faces another opponent. Although Fushir tries to convince his opponent to surrender, he refuses. Fushir transforms into Parona, which helps him win the fight. Later, Fushir reflects by the river, wondering how Parona died. The creator comments that Fushir now has a good vessel. Tonari invites Fushir to eat with them, but he tells her to leave as he won't let anyone control him. Tonari reveals that the person who brought them to the island disappeared upon arrival and asks Fushir to help find out who it was. Fushir transforms into a mole and digs through the walls. Using Parona's form, he tries to climb but fails. When he calls out to Pioran, she responds that she's imprisoned due to her own actions. Tonari tells Fushir she has information but will share it only if he passes the third round. The next day, Fushir fights another opponent but refuses to kill him. The crowd throws objects at Fushir, one of which is an arrow, helping him win the round. After the fight, Fushir encounters the previous opponent, who asks why he didn't kill him. Fushir explains that he's in the tournament to help someone. The opponent reveals he's also fighting for someone, his younger brother. Fushir promises to help him escape if he wins. That evening, Fushir and his friends cook dinner. Islanders arrive and demand to know their plans for the island. Suddenly, a knocker attacks Fushir, stealing all his forms. The knocker transforms into various forms, but the children and villagers use ropes and explosive arrows to fight back. Fushir, in Parona's form, manages to destroy the knocker. Later, Fushir recovers all his forms and remembers March. Miraculously, no one died, and everyone is safe. The group celebrates their victory. Fushir tells them about his creator and his transformations. When Mia asks about his dreams for the future, Fushir replies that he doesn't have any yet but might develop some as he learns more. Each person shares their dreams until the village chief announces the final round will be the next day. Seeing the lack of food, Fushir creates more, and everyone eats until they're full. However, the food puts them to sleep because it contains the same ingredient that Pioran previously used to sedate Fushir. Fushir goes for a walk, and Tonari wakes up, apologizes for bringing him to the island, and starts writing in her diary. She recalls her story, dreaming of writing a book to impress her father. She remembers finding her mother dead and her father being blamed and taken to the chaotic island. He participated in the tournament but was changed by it. Believing him dead, Tonari searched for his body among the combatants' remains but found a gift, a book from him, before he appeared to apologize and then died. Some boys arrive, confirming the poison worked, and dump his body. Tonari resolves to write her own story, detailing how she found a home with children her age at 9, started working at 12, and met Fushir at 14 during a journey. Tonari tells the crew to let Fushir board the ship, assuring them he will win the tournament and make history. The next day, Fushir, transformed into March, climbs to Pyron's prison. He tells her he will win the tournament and free her. When the final round arrives, Tonari gives Fushir a blowgun. Entering the arena, Fushir encounters Hayes, the woman who killed March. Furious at the sight of her, Fushir transforms into Parona and asks why she is there. Hayes reveals that Parona's form is a gift from her, explaining that she decided to decapitate Parona. Enraged, Fushir attacks repeatedly, but Hayes uses poison to knock him out, leaving her victorious and the new leader of the island. The children believe they will never escape the island. Hayes thanks them for protecting Fushir and proposes that they form an army to safeguard him. The villagers, however, reject her, unwilling to follow a demon. Surprisingly, Tonari steps up, expressing her desire to leave the island and promising a life of abundance for those who follow her. She asks the villagers to support her. Hayes then takes Fuchsia to a room where she begins to undress him, but the children arrive and find only Hayes, who claims Fuchsia was taken to a deep sanctuary. The children leave, unaware that the Fuchsia they saw was an empty shell. Fuchsia, now back in his true form, confronts Hayes, agreeing to cooperate if she lets the children leave the island. Hayes announces to the islanders that she will choose who leaves. She selects Piran, Tunari, and all children under 7. This decision is unpopular with the villagers. Before departure, Hayes drugs the group, making them believe they are embarking on the ship when in reality they are taken to a hidden location. Tunari wakes up on the ship, freed by the chief, and asks for a boat to return to the island to rescue Fuchsia. As she returns, she encounters Lingard, who has survived. Back on the island, Tunari finds Fuchsia and tells him she came to save him. Fuchsia explains he must stay to fight the knockers. Tunari convinces him to leave, but as they prepare to depart, a storm approaches, delaying their plans. Soldiers discover Fuchsia's absence, realizing the city is in danger. The creator appears, warning Fuchsia that the knockers are attacking the city. Determined to fight, Fuchsia heads to battle. The creator advises him that to defeat the next enemy, he needs a sword. Arriving at the battlefield, Fuchsia sees the knockers controlling corpses. While fighting, he finds their core but faces danger. Tonari's friends arrive to help. During the fight, a knocker captures UPA, controlling her. Nia tries to help but is impaled by UPA, who is under the knocker's control. Desperate, Fuchsia rescues Nia. As chaos ensues, Nia asks Fuchsia to heal her, but he realizes he cannot save her. UPA, beyond saving, is put down by Fuchsia, despite Tonari's pleas. Fuchsia loses Perona's form, and the knocker captures him. With no other choice, Browning sacrifices himself to save Fuchsia, allowing him to escape in mole form. Our heroic story concludes with the sacrifice of Gugu, who bravely loses his life. Meanwhile, we see Hayes battling the knockers, which keep emerging from the pit. Tunari tries to reach the knocker's nest, and Hayes attempts to kill her, but Fuchsia stops her, unable to bring himself to eliminate her. Hayes questions why he spares her, knowing his friends will die if he doesn't act. With Tunari in danger, Fuchsia transforms into an owl and uses fire to burn everything. The creator then informs him that only 3 knockers remain: Mia, UPA, and Upa. Heartbroken, Tunari remembers her friends but is interrupted by Hayes and 2 kids. She begs Fuchsia to let her finish them off, but he steps in, saving her and putting Hayes to sleep. Later, Tunari grabs a sword, ready to end the conflict, but Fuchsia stops her, taking on the responsibility himself. The islanders tend to the wounded and mourn the dead children. They acknowledge Tunari as their leader, lamenting their losses. An islander approaches Fuchsia, asking him to lead, but he refuses, urging them to stop the cycle of violence. The children decide to stay and help Tunari protect the island. With no reason to remain, Fuchsia prepares to leave, taking Hayes with him. Before departing, Tunari gives Lingard a gift to remember her by, hoping they will meet again. As they sail away, Hayes wakes up, confessing her love for Fuchsia and asking him to kill her so they can be together. Fuchsia rejects her, creating another boat to distance himself, warning her never to approach him again. A knocker appears on Hayes' boat, hinting at a sinister future for her. Later, while Fuchsia waits at a station, he spots Piran but chooses to observe from afar, wishing to avoid further complications. The next day, he decides to write Piran a letter, ensuring she knows he is safe. Remembering she often feels cold, he returns with a coat but finds her being taken back to Jananda by men. Realizing she can handle herself, Fuchsia leaves, pondering his creator's words about the inevitability of loss and death. Fuchsia asks his creator what he should do, expressing his loneliness. The creator advises him to discard his current vessels but assures this will be the last time. Fuchsia leaves his coat for Piran and departs. Piran wakes, recognizing him, and embraces him. Together, they journey to their initial destination, the Cernine Forest. Over the next month, Fuchsia grows in knowledge while Piran nears her 90th birthday. Fuchsia sets rules to avoid fighting knockers, not transforming into unknown animals, sleeping after Piran, and recording important events to avoid forgetting. Eventually, Piran's health deteriorates, leading to memory loss and confusion. Grateful for their time together, Pioran asks the creator to guide Fushur and, if possible, reincarnate her as something useful for him. The creator agrees, promising to find her essence before she reaches paradise. In a mystical scene, the creator retrieves Pioran's soul, transforming it into a new form. Fushur, realizing what has happened, mourns his friend. Later, he contemplates his next steps, writing about the day. As time passes, the creator notes that years have gone by, showing an older Fushur defeating a knocker. And so, the first season of Fumetsu no Anata to Your Eternity concludes, leaving us with a mature Fushur ready for new challenges and adventures. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on future episodes.